in question to Gary and Sharon, so I don't forget. Next week on your busy calendars, this is about my neighbor who is interested in talking to all of us. And you can look at your whatever schedule later and tell me, but he's free all day next Wednesday and Tuesday afternoon from noon to 4.
We have a meeting in the morning that Sharon is on, so we could do it Wednesday afternoon, and I have Thursday afternoon available.
So
Tuesday afternoon.
Would you like me to see if Sarah could do Tuesday 12 to 4 or Wednesday afternoon?
sure.
Why don't you let us know, but any of those dates work for me.
Okay, I'll send her a message.
Okay, so shall we start? And hopefully our other members will join in as they can. And my apologies once again. But the first order of business is the minutes of the December meeting. Did you all get them and have a chance to look at them? I'll give you a minute now.
Yep.
Are there any questions on the minutes?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Very good. Second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, John. All those in favor of approving the minutes of December 17th, raise their hand. Aye, excellent. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. I have egg on my face. I sent you the 2019. You know, all these days blend together. So I realized after I looked at it, I said, oh, darn. So actually I said something else, but I will have to resend you, but we're going to send it in. It doesn't look, the 2020 annual report is a similar format. We've changed some of the updates, but it's similar in nature. Do you feel comfortable approving the annual report now, or do you want to wait until our next meeting?
I will if you change the spelling of my name.
Oh,
It's two S's, Morrissey.
2 S's. All right. So this is the report that goes into the book that the town produces. So anyway, would you like to approve it or just wait till the next meeting? If someone would like to make a motion. John, you're on mute.
I move that we accept it and send it in.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I second.
Very good. All those in favor of approving the annual report for submission to the town, raise their hands. What a trusting group. Okay, the next one is down payment assistance. And what happened at the Housing Authority meeting at the beginning of January is that we approved another down payment assistance opportunity for someone who is buying a home here in Wellfleet, a first-time home buyer. And as a result, that used up all of our money in that program. And so we did approve another opportunity, and that we would take $20,000 from our trust fund and allow someone else to come. We haven't yet received any, but it's possible that people who are looking at the buy down may need down payment assistance as well. And the reality is most of different banks have different requirements, but most of them require at least 5% of the price of the house, the selling price of the house, to be paid directly by the funds from the borrower. So that if you assume that's 400,000, then they have to put up 5,000 of their own. So we often have to make up the remaining amount for the down payment, depending on how much it is. But if it was 10%, obviously, well, it's not 10%, 5%, 20,000, we'd have to put in 15,000 for that, plus the closing costs. So $20,000 should be enough to fund another down payment assistance.
So Gary, is what you said that
Nothing.
one was approved and we have funding for another?
Correct.
Okay.
That is the net of that. Karen, our apologies about the trouble linking in, but thank you for joining us.
I had to go back to find out, so
Right.
we're fine.
While we are on here, would you all just, so that I could set up a distribution list on my phone for texting, would you send me your cell phone number on an email or a text?
Do you prefer email? Do you prefer email or text?
Honestly, my ability to manipulate the keyboard on my laptop is much better than my phone. So if you email it to me,
Okay.
I will then sit
You got it.
in front of the football game and put in the numbers. Okay, so any questions on the down payment assistance? So the net is, we did approve another one. Someone is buying a home that we are helping them with, and they're closing shortly. They're closing in February. And we have one more available if you know of someone. But on the same token, I sent you the application for the buy down. So we had our first buy down information session on the 11th, and we had about 10 people there.
Oh, good.
And there are now 12 people signed up for the one on Saturday. So anyone who's interested, certainly come at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Everyone is welcome. The Zoom link is on the town website. But also, if you know of anyone who is interested in applying, it is not mandatory that they come. And that application has two pieces of interesting information, as well as please give it to someone who's interested. One is the incomes that are now qualify at 80%, the most recent ones. But the house prices now, you can buy, it's hard to believe, an affordable house in Wellfleet, and DHCD will approve it up to $450,000.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 because even though that's the price, can you afford the mortgage
Yeah.
on that house? So that's why we may have to use both down payment and buy down money. Thank you for joining us, Harry. We had a problem, and I assume you went off the town link.
I went off several links from the agenda and from the, yes, I'm here now.
So for those who I just introduced him, Harry is our former town administrator. I think most of you probably know him, but most recently, he is the chair of the new Wellfleet Housing Affordable Trust. So that will really be the mechanism by which we will fund any programs, but also that we will buy and sell property should that be the case.
Gary?
So welcome.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Gary, can we put that buy down information again up on the Wellfleet Facebook pages?
Of course. Feel free
Yeah,
to.
I mean, there's more than one. And so I think it would be beneficial to put it up in as many places as possible.
I completely agree with you, Karen. There's nothing wrong, I don't see, with putting it on the Facebook page. The new, the most recent application is also on the town website and on the Wellfleet Affordable Housing website. And again, the only other opportunity they would have to join a group chat is on Saturday at 10 o'clock. But certainly anyone who's interested can send an email and we will send them the application. The other thing I will note, if you're working with anybody, the applications are going to be due because of the COVID. We couldn't figure out a way for people to actually bring them into town hall. So they're going to go to the CDP in Eastham, that's the delivery address for them. So whether they drop them off in person or whether they mail them, they would send it to CDP. Yes, Sharon.
I just want to make sure that if someone puts the flyer on Facebook, let's make sure that they have the most recent version of it, because there was a phone number glitch,
Correct.
right?
The correct phone number is 508-419. There was a mistake on an early one that went out that said 319, but the actual correct phone number is 419. Any other questions about the buy down? So we're anticipating that we'll get a good response. You know, it's always hard to tell how many people will actually fill it out, and then of those that fill it out, how many will qualify. But the award date as we sit now is, the closing date is March 5th, and the award date would be early in April. Any questions on the buy down? All right, Sharon, do you want to speak about the ADU bylaws?
Sure. Is Olga here?
No,
Let's see.
No. Okay.
let me
She
send her a message though, okay?
I did send her one, but
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead and send her another.
All right.
Anyway, so we, we're going to every select board meeting, and so Olga kind of became the point person on writing the bylaw. And at this last planning board meeting this week, they were going to sort of take what she had and tweak it, but the conversation went off in a different direction. I guess this is it. I guess it's not anything new, but David Rowell was pointing out there's and I got to tell you, I'm a little bit fuzzy on it. In 1995, there was new Title V regulations put out and restricting, number of bedrooms per lot size. So if you had a 30,000 foot lot, you could have 3 bedrooms. If you have a 40,000 foot lot, you could have 4 bedrooms, etc. And if it was pre-existing before that time, it kind of went along the way it was. But I think that any new construction, this is my understanding, and it could be completely wrong, that any new construction triggers that. And so if you have, say you have a lot that has, you want to put an ADU on it, then, and it's not big enough, where you might have had the building on it before. And anyway, it's a problem. And Jerry Parent is going back to the town council and trying to work it out. It was discouraging, I think, for Olga and I, because we really thought we were kind of on a roll. The good news was that also present at the meeting were Helen Miranda Wilson, Ryan Curley, and Janet Reinhardt, all there in support of a new ADU bylaw. So the message is loud and clear. This is a priority, and people want to see it happen. So I'm sorry I'm not more clear on that. I was kind of hoping Olga was here, because she would be able to maybe explain it better. She has a number of ideas, as she always does. And now her current idea is, well, maybe it's just, we just allow it by right. And if someone wants to rent it seasonally, that's fine. We'll just collect the seasonal, the short-term rental tax off of them. And I'm not quite in favor of that yet, but we'll see. We'll see where we go. It's all a big ball of wax.
All right, let's back up. Does everyone know that what we're talking about, the difference between the ADU and the AADU? What Sharon is working on? It maybe be useful just to give a quick overview, Sharon.
Okay, well, the current bylaw that's on the books and has been since early 2000s It allows an affordable accessory dwelling unit, which is, the rent is restricted, is limited to rents set by HUD. At some, it's a very confusing formula, but they come out with the figures, and the rent has to be within those guidelines, and the tenant's income has to be certified as being no more than 120% of of area median income of Barnstable County.
I think Olga's on now.
What?
I think
And
Olga.
she's here.
Hi, Olga.
Hi, I'm sorry I couldn't get on. I didn't find the link.
Oh, sorry. I should have been more specific when I said go to the town website. I was just giving a little background on the current bylaw, and what Olga and I have been trying to do for some time now is get the planning board's sort of buy-in to create either a new bylaw to stand next to it, or a combined bylaw that allows accessory dwelling units without the affordability piece. And the reason for that is because there are people who are in some of these accessory dwellings who may be close to the income limit. And if they get a raise, then technically they're supposed to be kicked out. And nobody feels like that's a reasonable kind of arrangement. And so we're trying to figure out how to make it feasible, and I mean, preferably restricted to year-round use, but we're not sure that that's possible to do. So Olga, now you can add in if you want.
Okay. I did hear you say that it's an average rent. The tenants have to pay, no, wait. The tenant's rent will be average or below, but it's actually the FMR, which is not a median. It's about 40% of 40th percentile.
No,
But
I was
that's-
saying that the tenant's income had to be,
120%, but you said
Yeah.
something about median income or median,
no, the rents I
Okay.
said were set by HUD.
right?
That's all I said.
Okay. Correct. The other thing I should say is that the reason I wanted to separate the two, the AADU from the ADU, our proposal, is that the tax exemption is a special act of the legislature, and it really is not necessary because it stands alone. So let us just talk about accessory units.
Right.
And if someone has one that meets the affordability, they can apply for that. And Mike Travato made it very clear, they are completely separate.
Olga, can you explain a little bit what Jerry was talking about at the meeting this week?
I had been asking, what is the problem about wastewater being an issue for these new units? And when I kept pressing during the meeting, it turns out that it comes down to a situation of spot zoning. It has nothing to do with wastewater. I mean, if our draft proposal says it meets all the necessary requirements for wastewater, health, etc., then that's not an issue. So unfortunately, we postponed talking about this draft proposal until we hear back from legal counsel about whether this is spot zoning. And I was very disappointed that we couldn't go on and talk about the other aspects, because what we have now maybe is spot zoning. So I just don't think, I think it was a delay. That's between you and me.
Us.
I shouldn't say that.
So can I ask a question? If, let's assume for the sake of argument that town meeting will be in May. Kathleen, that's the new, oh, Kathleen, I'm sorry, you have your hand up. Do you wanna-
Yeah, I'm just, I want to stay with this conversation before you ask your question.
Yeah,
At the planning board meeting that I attended, I'm gonna back everything up. The question on the table for the planning board when Olga presented her draft was, did the planning board members want to support a single accessory dwelling bylaw? Just affordable or market rate. And with the exception of David Rowell, the planning board members all support a new, better written accessory dwelling bylaw. So that's good news. Forward motion on that. David's Rowell's concerns at that particular meeting had to do with, and this is where the spot zoning comes in, are we creating two family situations on lots that, you know, aren't going to meet the setbacks, so on and so forth. With regard to wastewater, it comes down to septic. Can an individual create another living situation on their property with an outdated Title V? Will that septic have to be upgraded? So those are the concerns I think the planning board is working with. But from my perspective, I think that, and I have to say this, I'm not always, I question the planning board oftentimes, but I think there's going to be some forward momentum on this. And I think you're going to see, you know, them draft create a new bylaw, and we'll see that at town meeting.
Olga, did you want to respond?
I just want to add that we left it that there was a problem with wastewater, but the bylaw itself, as we have proposed, says it must meet everything that the AADU meets now. We don't want to give failed septic systems, you know.
Right.
It
Right.
says it has to be up to current Title V regulations or IA.
Right.
That's what it,
Right. So we now are waiting to see if that is spot zoning.
The two family thing doesn't have anything to do with it? No.
No, I mean, if you
Okay.
add a unit, add a second house or divide your house, it has to meet septic requirements.
it has
and
to do with
storage.
lot size.
Say that
And
again, Sharon?
It has to do with lot size.
Right.
So certain size lots are not allowed in certain parts of the town. And so then you're only allowing it in areas where the lots are large enough, I think.
Mhm.
I'm
But
sorry,
currently that is the AADU.
Exactly.
So
wait just a second, Olga. Ann, did you want to add something? You had your hand up.
Well, I'm just trying to understand this concept a little bit better. Person has a 2-bedroom home with a 3-bedroom approved Title V septic. Can they put a little cottage on and meet wastewater requirements?
Yeah.
Or are we saying if they're putting a affordable or any kind of accessory dwelling, they must upgrade their septic system? I mean, is this just like another backdoor into
no, I
increase?
think what you're
IA.
saying is that there'd be 10,000 square feet for every bedroom in the condition that you suggest, right? And that's allowable as long as everything else meets, you know, setbacks and lot coverage.
Mhm.
But Ann, to answer your question, they may have to improve their septic.
If
Say
they
that
never
again?
met it before. If they don't have a Title V with 3 bedrooms, then they would have to do something. But if they met 3 bedrooms, they're golden.
And
Right.
have Title V.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I meant.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, yep.
The same burden would be on them if they tried to get a permit to expand their house to include
Right.
a bedroom.
Yeah,
You're
same,
not,
Right.
you're not putting an additional,
Different.
right, it's not an additional criteria, Olga?
no,
No.
So they have to meet the requirements of setbacks and septic in all ways.
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay,
We're not creating new requirements for setback and septics because of the accessory dwelling,
I
right?
don't think so. I don't think so.
Right.
Same as it was before for
Okay, so-
AADUs.
Mhm.
Kathleen, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question? No, I'm going to assume not. So my question back is one of timing and what do you want from us? So if it's going to be on a May town meeting and it has to go through the hearing process for a bylaw, by when do you have to have promulgated an actual set of bylaws?
I don't think we got an answer from.
And I think I have asked Helen that several times, and she has said to me each time, we have time. Don't worry, we have time.
Okay,
I hope she's right.
I can actually answer that for you.
go ahead.
Good, thank you.
So you need to post something, and what happens is it needs to be posted for a public hearing 2 weeks prior. So it needs to be in two consecutive newspaper. It needs to be in a newspaper 2 consecutive weeks in a row, and then you have the public hearing. So really, you only need to have it I give it a month and a half before town meeting. That way, that way it's done. And town meeting is looking more like it might be in June, just to give you a heads up.
Oh, terrific.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Do you have a date at this point, Rebecca?
Now, not right now. I know it's actually on the select board agenda for next Tuesday night to discuss town meeting and kind of the way it's looking, because the way it is now, no one's going to want to go inside that gymnasium to have town meeting. So they're looking again to have it outside. And if they have it outside, they're looking more towards June before the end of the fiscal year. So we don't get into any trouble with closing out the books and all that good stuff. But it'll be warmer if we do it more towards the middle of June versus April and May.
Harry, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, very, very quickly. The zoning act requires a public hearing on zoning amendments. Rebecca's correct on that. And it's got its own notice requirements. But the timing is just that it has to happen before town meeting. There have been instances where it's happened the week before. And all that does is it triggers a requirement that the planning board has to report to town meeting on the result of its hearing, or I believe it's 14 days have to elapse after the hearing without a report. But so typically Jan can perhaps recall from her days on the planning board also that typically the planning board will hold its hearing and someone will stand up at town meeting and say, we held our hearing and this is what we think.
Yeah, but Gary, and you have to have the final product done before the warrant goes to the printer.
No, I understand. I'm working back from the same thing, Jan, is let's just say for the sake of argument that the town meeting will be June 15th. So sometime around May 1st or thereabouts, you need to have that sufficient so it can go into the warrant, even though, as Harry says, you could have the actual hearing after the submission to the warrant. So if you're working backwards from there, then between now and then, what needs to happen for you to get this finalized, and what can we do to help? I'm asking Olga and Sharon.
Well, I think Jerry needs to be satisfied from town council that, we're not doing proposing anything that's illegal. And then Olga has written a very fine bylaw, and Jerry just wants to go through with the committee and tweak it. Now, as we know, that can take a lot of time. But it may not, we don't know. They've had it for a couple of weeks now, or a few weeks. So, hopefully it won't require that much tweaking. It's not a long bylaw.
And the essence is you're streamlining the AADU and effectively making it an ADU, so we won't have two bylaws, we'll have just one.
Mhm.
That's the proposal that's on the table now, yes.
That would incorporate both an affordable and as well as an addition quality.
The bylaw doesn't actually make a distinction between the two, because the distinction comes in
Yes, I
when
understand.
you file for the affordable housing tax exemption.
And it would streamline the AADU process in terms of all of the administration that has to go into certifying them. Oh, yes, did you have, Olga, did you want to add something?
No, I
No,
think that's,
okay. So it sounds like you're making progress. Olga, our next meeting tentatively is scheduled for February 24th. So if let's say up to 5 days before that or something, if you have a version that you think is close to its final form, will you send it to me, and then we can distribute it and put it on the agenda for our next discussion?
okay. I would also like to advise you that I've been talking with Ryan Curley about a residential exemption, or an exemption for non-resident owners that rent year-round. And I'd like to work on dovetailing that into the ADU, or just let people know that it's another way of getting more rental units. But I'll give you more information. What Ryan sent to me was what Provincetown has recently done. And it's a very interesting residential exemption.
Does that need to go to the state?
Yes.
Well, no, in Provincetown, it has passed. It's law. So,
Right, but they had to take
go
it to the
Attorney
state.
General first, Olga.
okay, I thought it was a done deal
I
in
think
Provincetown.
you are right that they had to get special legislation.
Yeah, it might be done there, but they can't just do it at town meeting.
Right.
Right. But I think they did it already.
Yeah,
Right.
good for them.
So then we should be able to also.
But you said a residential, but you're saying a non-residential exempt. tax exemption.
Non-residential owners would, it's kind of complicated, but not. People who are non-residents would get, who own property that they rent year-round, would get the residential exemption.
Okay, yeah.
And
Yeah,
my
it's-
further
it's-
thought about it is it may be considered double dipping if people get that and the affordable housing tax exemption, and so be it.
Right. I think it's a great idea, Olga, in that it gives non-residents who may consider creating a year-round rental a break. And it may be just a push someone needs to create another year-round rental. That's all the efforts going forward need to be about, whether it's a market rate rental or an affordable rental, it needs to be about creating more rental and more space.
Year-round rental.
Yeah, year-round.
So, Olga, if you have something, you could send it to me for the next meeting, then we could look at it in more detail.
When
And-
is the next planning board meeting?
In 2 weeks on a Wednesday. That's February 3rd at 7 p.m.
So I encourage anyone who's interested to attend the
Yeah.
meeting. They're open to everybody, the Zoom link, and hear the discussion and speak up as it's appropriate. Sharon, do you want to pursue your idea of promoting the AADU program or the ADU program, or do you want to wait until you get clarification as to the?
No, we're, you know, we have ADUs on the books. And our AADUs and our, you know, our little support group has been, that Karen and Olga and I have been meeting by phone to try to brainstorm ways. Because one of the stumbling points for the planning board was the concern that if we allowed ADUs without the affordability piece, then the affordable accessory dwelling units would decrease in numbers. And they like that because, and you know, I do too. And so the question was, what can we do? This is what our little group is sort of brainstorming. What can we do to further support that program? And you got my my brainstorming list. And I don't think you sent it out, but you know, basically it was 3 prongs. There was basically, we feel that there should be more marketing and much more clarity on the website, and in really, people should be able to easily access and understand what's involved in creating an affordable accessory dwelling unit. That should be easy, and it should be, you know, Karen's adding a little pop to give, you know, to put a little marketing into it. And then the other piece, we felt that there should be more support for people considering having an AADU, or, you know, and the support could be anywhere from going before the zoning board of appeals. It could be, you know, talking to the housing inspector. It could be how to find an appropriate tenant. It could be helping to manage landlord-tenant relationships. And we sort of feel like that should be an outside person, whether we're pushing for a housing coordinator, frankly. But if not, lacking that, maybe it's something that CDP could be contracted to do. So that's one thing. And then the third prong was financial incentives. Like, what can we do beyond the affordable housing tax exemption to incentivize the program? Like, could we give a yearly stipend of $1,000 to each? I mean, we're just brainstorming here. Or can we create, with our affordable housing trust or through other agencies, could we create some form of low interest loans or forgivable loans, or, you know, things to help people create it, that come with strings? Like you get the loan and you have to have this AADU for X number of years. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about and kind of proposing.
So I think the question is, how do we take it to the next step? What would you like to do moving forward? So are you ready to request money to do X, whether it be a brochure?
No, I don't think we're quite there yet.
So
Would you agree, Olga and Karen?
I think it's been tweaked a lot, but I think we can sit down and tweak it again. Olga just sent over some other suggestions, which are great. And I think we have to look at them and tweak how we want to present this if we're going to put it with the tax bill.
So, right.
No, that's a Housing Angels. That's a little different.
Oh, that's different. Okay, sorry. I get so confused.
Although there is a linkage to it, but let's just stay focused on the ADU right now, or the AADU. If we want to promote this in new ways, then what we need is a proposal with some specific activities and budget associated with it. So I could give you the CPA form, and you could use that as the basis, because it's interesting, because going forward, we'll either need to fund this through CPA, and that is a July 15th deadline. So you would need to have it in by then. But that's for approval for next year, for 2022. The second thing is the new housing trust. There is a proposal to give them a lump sum of money and they could field requests. And so you could then put it in, and that funding would be available theoretically if it's approved by July 1 of this year. And the third is just if it's a modest amount of money that you're talking about, if we're talking about a couple $1,000s or below, that's something that we could just put into the housing authority and request the funding for. So I'm not sure how big the spread box is, how much you need to do what you want.
Well, I think the marketing piece and the improving the information, that's kind of low hanging fruit. I mean, it's not to say that it won't require work, it will.
Mhm.
But some of the other pieces, like if we're going to have a support person, that's a bigger ticket thing, right?
You're
Or if we're
asking-
going to provide financial incentives, those are things that we're going to have to be managed either through the trust or through CPA funds.
Okay. And
I'm really confused. Are we talking about promoting ADUs? And if so, how can we do that till we know what the bylaw is?
ADUs.
Well, I thought the idea was to try to combine them.
Right, but even so, even if they're combined, we want to see people taking advantage of the affordable housing tax exemption and providing lower cost housing.
Right.
So this is to try to incentivize that.
Whether it's in its own bylaw or two bylaws. We're
Yes.
focusing on.
Because it doesn't matter. The
just the-
bylaw would just be about having an accessory dwelling unit. And this is about trying to get people to provide that accessory dwelling unit as an affordable. In
Okay,
other words, taking the tax exemption, living with the constraints on tenant income and fair market rent.
and is that part of what the housing angels are focusing on, or that's?
No,
separate?
the housing angels is really more about trying to figure out ways to get the public to give us more money and more land and more support, and to really be people out there who are supporting affordable housing in Wellfleet in any form.
Got it. Like my
Is that
neighbor
all?
across the street.
Right. Does that make sense? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it's so confusing.
No, that's helpful.
well, I just want to, let's see how we can move it along.
Yeah.
So if the three of you want to put on your thinking caps, and I think Susan's right in that this may be a launch in July after it's decided on the bylaw
Yeah.
at the June town meeting. And, you never know what happens when you go to the floor of town meeting, whether it's going to be approved or not. But one thing we can also be looking at is, do you need some kind of a marketing push to support it at town meeting? Whatever it is that we are doing, as we have done before, some kind of lobbying effort. So maybe come back at our next meeting. I'll send you the CPA form to kind of give you some structure for that. But think about what activities do you really need to be doing in the spring, and how much money do you need to do it? And the other part of it is, if in fact it's adopted, then how do you promote the program after July 1?
If it's adopted, you mean the new bylaw?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe Harry knows. Once it's approved at town meeting, is it effectively available, Harry?
No, typically zoning bylaws, the Attorney General has an
Yeah, that's what I was-
opportunity to review them, and if the Attorney General's office is not, let me tell you,
Can you all hear that? That's my granddaughter. She's
Yes, we
correcting.
can.
She's doing it again. She's 4 years old. Take the iPad away from her. I'm
uh,
sorry.
anyway,
Grandma.
there's an approval process for zoning bylaws that go through the Attorney General's office to check for consistency with state law. And I forget what the time period is the Attorney General has to act, but if the Attorney General finds fault with the bylaw or the process, you kind of have to fix those problems before it's effective. Also, the town meeting can set an effective date as part of its vote. You know, you could vote at a June town meeting that it's going to be effective September 1st or January 1st or some other date.
Mhm.
But, you know, you have to go through that approval process with the Attorney General.
Thank you, Maddie.
Sorry.
That's all
Bye,
right.
Maddie.
Bye.
We were late. Okay, so I think if you, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann. Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I just a quick question for Sharon and Karen and Olga in this attempt to brainstorm around incentivizing affordable development, you know, in affordable dwelling units. Have you considered doing any kind of survey to kind of out what would incentivize? Do you think that's a reasonable?
Well, that's interesting. Would you like to write it?
I could get a little help with it from my daughter, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But
I mean, how would
Um,
that get promulgated? Would that be over like the Wellfleet
I'm not
community
sure.
space or something?
Maybe.
I mean, we're a little constrained right now,
Hmm.
but I mean, it's not a bad idea. I
Why
would
don't we
love to know
talk
what the
about it
thinking
next
is.
time we meet?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Is that okay? But that's a good idea. I like it.
All right, so
It can put a bug in people's heads, you know?
Hmm.
Kathleen, I see you. Go ahead.
I don't, the last zoning bylaw that Wellfleet challenged and put forward at town meeting was in 2007. And it was a citizen's petition article to reduce house size in the Cape Cod National Seashore. It did not have the backing of the planning board, but there was a small group of us, myself included, who did just that. And we went door to door, basically, and asked people how they felt about large homes in the Cape Cod National Seashore within the bounds of Wellfleet. And we knew going forward at town meeting, we had unanimous support for that zoning bylaw change, even without the planning board's benediction on it. So it's a good point to make, Ann.
All right. Well, there's probably an electronic way in the era of COVID to do that.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure there is. And there's tools to do surveys. So just a question of who we'd send it out to, but we can talk about it at another time.
I'd start with the Wellfleet Community Forum
Mm-hmm.
and use them as the host.
Mm-hmm.
Massive email.
Yeah.
Just, you know, at a certain point, the ideas are going to exceed the available energy.
Yeah.
So I love having ideas, and I love having people say, and I'll help you with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, we've been working hard.
Yeah.
All right, so just to put next steps on it. You're going to come back with a proposal at our next meeting with some more specificity, including the possibility of doing a survey. So is there anything else you want to say with regard to the ADU, AADU? So the next item on our agenda is the housing angels. Karen, do you want to explain what you mean by housing angel?
Well, Susan introduced this idea sort of to us, that she had a neighbor that might be, I'm blaming her, that she had a neighbor that might be interested in providing land or money to build some affordable housing here in town. And we've kind of expanded that to present it to the citizens of Wellfleet, to put a bug in their head that maybe they have some interest in doing this, or don't like to donate to the housing trust, or might have property, a portion of their home or something on their house that they would be able to use for an ADU or an AADU. Did I say that correctly, Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, we're just looking for, I think the point we need to get across is that while the housing advocates, the groups are working hard, there's a limit to how much we can do through government means. And, we really need private support. And so we want to encourage people to, leave their home in their, as their estate, part of their estate planning, leave their home to us or leave some land. We know the Conservation Commission gets land donated. So yeah, why shouldn't we?
Good point.
So, we're just trying to figure out ways to really get more private support for what is really a public problem.
Okay, so I have two things. There is an opportunity that we have to put an insert into the tax bill in the spring. I traded emails with the tax collector, and that has to be into her by the first week in March, but it has to be approved by the select board.
So it has to get to the select board before it gets to her?
Correct.
Okay.
She really just does the production of it.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps you've seen them before, but it's roughly 1/3 of a page.
Mm-hmm. Can't be a fold over or anything, can it?
Correct. We've gone through this before. Sometimes we have it on the, we are the back with somebody else's effort, but they also have a critical weight that they have to stay under in order to meet the postage requirements. So if we want to put in an appeal in the spring tax mailing, basically we need to approve a process of that for doing that now and have it within the next 2 weeks in order
I think
to get
we can
it to
do
the
that,
select
Sharon.
board.
Don't you think so?
Sure, I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I did send out the housing angels, and I sent out some suggestions. Are you comfortable, memberships, in approving a tax insert effort without actually seeing the copy before our next meeting? Because I think by then it will be too late to meet the deadline.
I mean, we approved the whole annual report. We can certainly approve this.
Right. The thing is, the tax insert gets a lot more attention than the annual report. But let me stop here and say, Harry, you have a question or a comment?
No, just quickly, I think the only statutory requirement is the insert can't increase the postage cost of mailing the tax bills.
Right.
And that's why typically they've been 1/3 of a page, so we can get more of them in.
Right. So what I'm really asking is, can we, and Susan's point is well taken, we have a lot of trust in each other. So what I'd like to suggest is that we approve the idea of, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a tax insert in the spring tax bill mailing, and that we delegate the writing of it and the processing of it to whom? To you, Karen?
Oh, sure.
To,
With
work on it
the help
together.
of Olga and Sharon. Look,
Yes,
you know,
right,
I'm the
right,
newbie here.
right. We just like to have one person responsible, then who your cohorts are is fine.
Okay,
All right, so there is a motion to have Karen develop a spring insert for the tax bill mailing.
I make the
little do you
motion.
know, it's almost all done, so.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Very good. Passed unanimously. Now, the second part of it is, do you want to do a brochure, which it doesn't have the same time limit, and could incorporate both the AADU as well as your Angels program? Because I think the question is, do we need, in this day and age, is having a physical brochure worthwhile?
How or where would you distribute it?
Well, assuming that the age of COVID has an end to it, Jan, you know, you'd put it in the library and in town hall and the COA and mail it out to the school, or have them do their sneaker net distribution, and, you know, all the ways that we have distributed brochures in the past.
Okay.
You could use a beach office too, Gary.
Yeah, beach office. I mean, there are a lot of places in that we can put some, all the restaurants and
The
things like
banks.
that. Yeah,
Maybe we could get the Seasonal Homeowners Association to send them out.
yeah, exactly. We have done that in the past, and it can be both a electronic copy and a hard copy.
So are you proposing that we create a brochure that is both AADU support and Housing Angel support?
Yes, I think it's under the umbrella of Housing Angels, and one of the tools that a Housing Angel, and we can give more specifics about the AADU.
Okay,
And you know, a brochure, if it's a physical brochure, well, let's talk first about the production, because it could be just an electronic brochure that we send out to all those places, and obviously the cost of printing and distributing is essentially none. So it's just the cost of getting someone to design that electronic copy. And the second part of it could be a physical brochure. What do you think?
well, the physical is less urgent,
Right.
given our COVID situation. That could always be developed after.
You could essentially produce it as if it were a physical brochure that you could also use as an electronic distribution. So you could put it on the website, the Wellfleet website, and the Facebook homepage, and, you know, all the forum could distribute it if we could get their approval to do that, and the Chamber of Commerce could distribute it.
Uh-huh.
So I think what we need is someone to first develop it, and then secondly to design. You have to develop the copy, and then have someone actually put together the piece.
Well, why don't we work on the copy first?
Okay,
And then maybe we could, you know, Darren was so helpful before, maybe we could get him to help us with it again, and maybe even, you know, pay him.
I was going to say we should. No, I mean, it's hard enough to make a living out here,
Yeah,
right? So if we can help, we'll help.
Yeah,
And-
mine was, I'm not very literate, you know, so I can write words, but I can't put it all together in a pretty picture.
yeah, we need somebody who's good at that.
Right. So
Not me.
do you want to inquire, Sharon, on that? And
Sure, I can ask, or Anne, maybe you could ask.
But
I can't,
I think we should definitely pay him. I mean,
yeah,
that's his
I
work.
think so too.
Yeah. Okay,
Anna, you want to ask, and maybe you come back to the next meeting and both with some ideas on copy, but also how do we distribute the information?
Well,
okay.
I mean, just ask him in general. My feeling would be to just ask him in general and let us develop the copy. And, you know, then maybe
Well-
at the next meeting, we can run it, we could send it out to you for approval before the next meeting. And you could, you know, if the committee agrees with what it is or wants to tweak it or whatever, that we do that. And then we send it to Darren and let him arrange it, because that's what he does. He's
Yeah,
very
well,
good
and
at-
could do the layout of it electronically for the possibility that it might become a print brochure too. We'll
Right.
just let him know that's a possibility.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we don't-
But I think before we approach Darren, we need to get the copy together.
Sure, yeah, yeah, absolutely. He won't even, he'll just say, yeah, let me know.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Okay, is there anything else on the Angels program that you want to talk about?
I think that's enough.
Okay, let's move on. We received today a copy from the wastewater committee that outlines the plan for wastewater for the 95 Lawrence project. And that basically is that the town will build a wastewater treatment facility located on or near the water tower on Lawrence Road. And they would manage and operate that, and that the developer of the housing would be asked to pay for a portion of that cost equal to roughly the cost of putting in an IA septic system at that facility to service the 46 units. And that number is approximately $750,000.
That's great.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so too. The
Great plan.
idea would be that the wastewater treatment center would be run by the town, that over a relatively short period of time after the housing came online, that the police and the fire and the school would be hooked up to that system. And then if they're successful, the potential exists for servicing the neighbors in terms of their septic needs. That's a much trickier thing,
Yeah.
obviously, both in terms of the cost and the management of it. But the time frame is that they hope to have it within 2 years of the time in which we award a contract for 95 Lawrence. And our current thinking is that we are going to issue the RFP request around March 15th.
Oh,
And so
There's
Gary,
progress.
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you have a question, Ann?
what is the overall cost of the
What is the total cost of the septic?
septic treat?
It
Yeah.
depends upon,
3.8 million.
well, it depends upon what technology they adopt, number one. And as Kathleen said, it could be $3 million, but they're not anticipating bringing everyone on board at step one. So it's really a 3-phase project. And
Modular.
yeah. So phase 1 would be the housing.
Mhm.
Phase 2 would be the town facilities, and phase 3 would be the residents in the area. And the goal of it is not simply to reduce the increase, but to actually reduce the nitrogen going into Duck Creek.
Mhm.
Eric,
Yes.
does that $3 million plus figure include like personnel that the town would have to hire
Yeah.
to,
There
know,
is an annual cost to maintain and operate the system.
yeah,
I'm happy to send everybody, if they'd like, a copy of the wastewater report. It's very detailed. But no, I mean, I think it's now something like 100 pages. But to answer your question, the cost for the initial implementation is estimated at 1.7 million.
but does that include personnel?
No.
I don't know that it's actually new personnel that the town would hire or whether they would outsource the operation of it, the water system.
Okay,
And honestly, that's above my pay grade. I don't know what they will do it eventually, and it's years out. Kathleen, you want to comment on it?
Jan, we have a contract for a part-time maintenance on our water system with Whitewater.
right.
Whether we extend that contract to include this going forward it's not been determined yet. But the maintenance will be on the town. Getting back to something Gary just said, 1.7 to get 95 Lawrence up and running. That'll be the first part of this build. But going forward to town meeting, we're anticipating asking for the full entire amount. Not just 1.7. We're gonna ask for the full amount for this system.
So with regard to that, yesterday, they just announced a new round of infrastructure grants for small towns under 7,000 population that the state is offering. And so we are hopeful, since this is a combination of septic and housing, which are really the A and A prime of that priority list. We're hopeful that in addition to the money that we got for the drinking water extension, that we will get some state funding for this. But again, no one can promise that, and that's an application we have to make. So, but I guess I would invite everyone there, if you're interested in this in a little more detail, tomorrow. There is a meeting at 1 o'clock of the 95 Lawrence Task Force. So please join in, and certainly this will be a major topic of conversation at that meeting. Okay, are there questions about 95 Lawrence or about the wastewater? Harry, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. It seems like this is another piece that has to be in place to get a developer to actually execute on 95 Lawrence Road. So does this become, make the logistical challenge even more challenging?
I think the short answer to the question is yes, Harry. That's why we have been working with the wastewater committee. And again, I'm happy to send it out to you, but what we received yesterday was language to put into the RFP, which describes what they are going to do, when they are going to do it, and what are they asking the developer for. So it's harder than, obviously, if a developer is looking at this saying, do I want to bid on this or not? It's another, it's less fixed, it's less finite. It's how do I measure how much it's going to cost and how will it impact my plans for this development. But it's, I think, better than what happened at Cloverleaf in Truro. If those of you who have been following it, where they said X, and then they had to go back and redesign how they were doing wastewater. So we're trying to be proactive and say, we understand this is an issue. Here's how we're doing it. The town is stepping up to their responsibility for it. They're not putting it all on the developer. As they said, they're only asking for 44% of the cost of that, which is roughly the cost that the developer would have to incur to put in an IA system or even a Title V system.
I think it's great for the developer because it's spelled out. There's
Yes.
much less likely to have a lawsuit.
I'm making it a little bit more fixed than it is because the 1.7 million, although it's cited in the language that we have from wastewater, it's not a finite number, it's not fixed. And so if I'm the developer, I'd say, well, is there a not to exceed number? Some way in which I can limit how much it may cost me eventually. Yes, Kathleen?
I just want to add, Gary, to Harry through you that we learned from Hillary that state regulations are going to be changing dramatically with regard to reducing nitrogen. The 208 watershed plan is really holding a gun to this region with regard to reducing nitrogen load. So it's expected that those regulations are going to change dramatically before we've got a shovel in the ground at 95 Lawrence Road. And again, going back to what Gary said, being proactive on this gives us a better foundation. But also like to add, Cloverleaf got a grant for their septic and wastewater system through Mass Housing Works. They had a grant in their pocket, to pay pretty much for the whole thing. I think I'm right there, aren't I, Gary? And then all this other stuff came up.
Well, let me back up a second. They received a grant not for septic, but for drinking water. It was Mass Works grant that they received to bring the water lines from P-Town to North Truro to support the Cloverleaf. They don't have the money now, no extra grant money. But we do know that, for instance, Brewster was able to add a septic component to their Mass Works grant, drinking water grant. And that's another possibility that we could do. But so the timing of this is we're meeting tomorrow, the 95 Lawrence Task Force at 1. Please join us. But then we hope to finalize the RFP and then send it once more to Select Board for final review and issue it early in March with an idea of putting in, making a selection by June or July. And then after that, the clock would start ticking on putting in the septic system. So that would go in theoretically in 2 years from July.
And I think I remember that there's very little possibility that the housing will be built in 2 years.
No. But the developer, before they can break ground, needs to know how septic will be treated. So if, let's say, for instance, we don't get the grant and the town decides not to do the septic system, wastewater system, we could always go back to the IA system that we had previously discussed. But it's a lot of moving pieces, but at the end of the day, we need to do something about Duck Creek. This is a way for us to back into getting some money to help do it. And it's good for housing if in fact we can do it.
Just like we helped do the water.
Yes, exactly.
Expansion.
Right. I mean, our water proposal was much more attractive when we say it's water for housing rather than it's just water for residential use. Okay, any other questions on 95 Lawrence or wastewater? All right. I mentioned Harry is the head of the new trust fund. We were scheduled to have a meeting on Monday, but it's been pushed to this coming Monday. So I don't have anything new to report on that other than, like the bylaws for the AADU and ADU, there will be a motion on the town meeting warrant for bylaws for the trust. Anything you want to add, Harry, to that?
Only that I have started that conversation with town council
Excellent.
about what the trust would like to see in those bylaws, but don't have any work product back from them yet.
Super, thank you. So I'll give you another date. For those of you who are looking to fill up your dance card, the trust is meeting on Monday, the 25th at 4 o'clock. So
Yep.
anyone is welcome to come and join us. It's a public meeting. We're happy to have your participation. The last thing I just wanted to talk about, and I don't know, Sharon, if you want to mention this or not, but Freeman Avenue is the lot that we have gotten from town, and we have been desperately looking for other land that we could build on without having found any so far. And one of the ideas that we were talking about in the tax bill mailing was to ask people if they have property, either to donate it or frankly to sell it to us at a good price. We would certainly entertain that. Anything you want to add on that, Sharon? Oh, Ann, I'm sorry.
I just was going to ask, I know it's an older topic, but is there any movement ever with the COA land?
I have to say, and I finally got tired of hitting my head against the wall on that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I heard the last time. The town owns 3+ acres adjacent to the COA, but it's in the seashore.
Yeah.
And it has to be for, the seashore requirements are for a municipal purpose. So it would have to be that, my understanding would be that the town would have to own, if you were talking about housing, would have to own the housing that's going, and that there is no, nothing indicating that the town would be willing to do that. So if it's not municipal owned, then it doesn't meet the seashore requirements and therefore can't be built.
Can I ask a question?
Of course,
So that building on Route 6,
the building on Route 6.
there's a building on Route 6 that's owned by the town?
The South Wellfleet Firehouse?
I guess so, yeah. It's
Okay,
not used as a firehouse anymore, right?
correct, it is not.
Okay, and so you said that the town keeps it to store records and stuff?
No. It
Equipment.
services the DPW.
Yeah, equipment.
Oh, they don't have enough room at the other place for the equipment?
No.
Okay,
It's
so
seasonal
could we,
stuff.
is there a way of building municipal buildings there to service their equipment and then build housing on Route 6?
The piece on Route 6 where the fire station is very small.
Yes. it is.
Yeah.
And you probably are going to find that you're extremely constrained in terms of the number of bedrooms you can put on that piece of property. It's just
Looking
tiny.
at that thing and saying, you know,
Right, we've asked for that a couple of times in the past, Karen, without success.
Okay.
But- And
All right.
no, it is. I mean, you're doing exactly what we need to do, is to look at every piece and say, what if? So, and I know that Sharon has been looking at some over by Fred Bell Way that may be possible, but so far we haven't found any.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna work.
No, right. So, just if you know of anybody who has some land, I think we would entertain, buying a piece of land if it was at the right place in the right circumstances.
would they get a tax break for that?
They could only get a tax break if they sold it to the town at a reduced amount that they could demonstrate. So if they have an appraisal and it's worth $1 million, and they said, I can sell it to the town for 500,000, then they do get some tax break on that.
Did they sell it to the housing trust?
They could sell it to the housing trust. The housing trust is the town.
Okay,
Yes,
Wasn't-
Sharon, I'm sorry.
So Sarah was going to
Yeah,
come up with a list of land, of vacant land that's for sale.
Do-
Did you get that?
I did not. Do you want to prod her? Do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll prod her.
Okay.
I just prodded her about this conversation with Susan's neighbor, so I can prod her again.
Okay. Anything else on property, land, Freeman, nothing is happening on Freeman as of this moment, as we are looking for another piece of land that we could then tie to that and have a multi-site building effort for affordable homes. Home ownership, not rental. All right. So we have, the last item I just wanted to report to you is that we have had a number of requests already for the emergency housing assistance. The need has been much greater than we thought in terms of the amount of money people are in the situation to require. So we have started to pay that out to 2 families already, and it remains to be seen how much we will need. But we're encouraged by the fact that the moratorium was extended yesterday by federal. I don't know if that translates down to fully to the state, but that at least will hold off. The problem is, obviously, if I owe that money, it's just I owe every month more.
Yeah.
So the tally is going up, so the hole is getting deeper. Okay, any other questions on housing or about the partnership? So the last thing I have is April 25th at 4 o'clock, Thursday, April 25th at 4 o'clock for our next meeting. Does anyone have a problem with that?
February 25th.
February 26th, my apologies.
Before you said the 24th, so is it the 24th or the 25th?
You know, the honest answer is I have to put my other glasses on because I can't even see what I
It's the
wrote down.
25th, Karen.
It's the
Okay, thank you.
It's
Agenda
always
says
a Thursday.
That's what I thought when I put it in the calendar on Wednesday. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, I appreciate your attendance. I'm sorry that we had a snafu on it. We'll try to get it corrected for the next meeting, but go out there and keep housing. Thank you all. Stay healthy.
Thank you,
Bye.
Gary.
Bye.
Gary, are you available on Tuesday afternoon between 12 and 4? Sharon got a hold of Sarah and she is available.
Tuesday the 26th. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna get a time from Chris and let you both know.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye.
Thank you all.